Hey everyone, I am T-Rex, and recently I talked about the 1982 classic Blade Runner. Now, since I did that review, I knew instantly that I'm going to have to review the sequel, Blade Runner 2049. This movie has gotten amazing reviews, still holding an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes, also getting fantastic reviews across the board, and people saying that it was as good as the original, if not better. Now that is some high praise, saying that it is better than the original, since I honestly love the original so much. Go watch my review, I gave my review on it. But in this review, I'm going to see if Blade Runner 2049 is that good, or is it even close to as good as the original. Now let's get into it. Alright, so let's start with the narrative. And this is about this Blade Runner named Kay, while doing a mission, discovers something that is not meant to happen. Now that is all I want to review about this narrative, since it is absolutely amazing at taking you on a ride with lots of twists and all of the turns that are honestly leave you without knowing where it is going to go. The narrative is great at being able to weave multiple plot lines that masterfully culminate towards the end. Now, does this mean the story is perfect? I'm going to say that the story is not perfect in the traditional sense. This movie being a sequel to the original Blade Runner just says if you haven't seen the original, you're going to be lost. It just leaves you behind because this story really needs you to see the first one to understand it, which is an interesting approach, and for me it works since I have seen the original, and the way the story is told, it doesn't feel like a traditional story structure. I do remember seeing the ending for the first time feeling a little confused, but the more I thought about it, the more I just absolutely loved the way they ended it. I just wasn't used to seeing this type of ending. It felt really different, and it felt very Blade Runner-y. I don't know if I can say that or if that makes any sense, but it really felt like it was a way to end a Blade Runner movie. On a whole, the narrative is very sharp and very good, and I loved the storyline that they decided to go with. I thought it was very smart and well done. I loved it. But I will say that the movie is great at being bigger than the original, since it really opens up the Blade Runner world. It fulfills its job at being a sequel as it gives us new characters and really feels like it's expanding the world of the original. The world building in this movie, I have to say, is absolutely fantastic. Los Angeles in the future is still amazing. Such good world building, along with when they go outside of New Los Angeles. It is amazing the world building they do outside of it. And I think this leads to another thing I have to say about the cinematography. This is quite possibly the best looking film I have ever seen, and I don't say that lightly. I think that this film is just beautiful. It is so well done, and it is so good. There might be some films look better than this from what I've seen, but I don't know. This film is probably just the best looking film I've seen. I've never seen a film like it. Now, I've really gushed so far about the story and the narrative and the world building, how I just love it both. But you have to move through a story at a good rate, that way people don't get bored. So let's start talking about the pacing real quick. And I think on the most part, the pacing really works. I think that a lot of people are definitely going to say that this film is boring at times, but I think that's just because the world building and story is so big that they really want to take their time to be able to develop their story. I really think this film really wants to take its time when it comes to telling its story, and so I don't think for some people that just won't work. Like, look at the first Blade Runner. The runtime for that movie was actually under 2 hours, a few minutes shy of it. But Blade Runner 2049 comes out at a time of 2 hours and 45 minutes. That is long. That is a long movie no matter whatever way you want to cut it. That is a long film, and this movie definitely takes its time. I think that there are a lot of scenes where it just really takes its time in doing the dialogue. I think that will be a turnoff for people. Like, even the first scene is slow, quiet, and it is the establishing scene, and it's like 5 minutes. This can make some scenes towards the end, you want to just be like, hey, can we kind of pick it up on the pace? And for some people, they'll just be flat out bored because they're not interested in the characters or whatever. But I honestly think the pacing works, because when you're in those moments where you go to a new place and you see the world building, you really want to be in that world and really be able to enjoy all of it. So I think on the most part that the pacing really works, for me at least. I thought it really slowed down just so it could be able to tell you the bigger picture. You could really take in the scenes and really absorb the world in when you're watching this film. So there is somewhat of a lack of action in this film. Like, this film is not an action movie. It's like the first Blade Runner. Now, trust me, when the action is there, it is awesome. It is so good, fluent, but it is obvious that they did not want to put action in this film just for there being action. It's kind of like the original Blade Runner, where there's only going to be action if it's going to progress the plot or progress the characters, and it's not there just for action's sake. Now, I have talked about the pacing and the story, and I said the story's great, and I love the world building, but some people might be like, oh, a slow movie, that's a bit of a turnoff, but luckily, since it's slow, it needs good characters, and let me talk about the characters. Kay played by Ryan Gosling, is an absolutely fantastic character. Most of these characters in this film I love. He's a very interesting character and has very interesting motives, and like he's very different. And Ryan Gosling gives a stellar performance. Like, geez, this guy is amazing, and his character's so good, interesting, quiet, and I think Ryan Gosling during the hard scenes really nails it. Also, Ana de Armas gives a pretty great performance. And of course, we're going to talk about Deckard. Harrison Ford returns in this film as Rick Deckard, and that's not a spoiler since it's in the poster and the trailer, but Deckard, it's just awesome to have him back in this film. It's obvious that the writing team knows how to write Deckard since he is older, and since this is one of the screenwriters did return, who wrote the original Blade Runner, came back to write Blade Runner 2049, so it's obvious that these writers really know how to write Deckard, and he still feels like Deckard. Also, I personally love Deckard. I said that in the first review, but I just enjoy this character so much. I almost cheered a little when I first saw him in the film, but I think that Harrison Ford actually gives a very good performance in this, and that's really interesting because Harrison Ford sometimes doesn't like giving it all when he doesn't really care, but it's obvious that he really wanted to do well for this, I think, and I think he put on a great performance, and in the emotional scenes, Harrison Ford is fantastic. This movie is just so good with these characters. Also, Jared Leto is in this film as the bad guy. He's creepy enough, doesn't have too much to do or character development. I think he's good at being that ominous figure, I guess. I think he's fine. I don't know if we needed him. But I think his assistant is actually a lot more interesting of a character. I think Love is very cool. Overall, I think the characters in this film are fantastic. I think they're all done with great performances. Entire team did a good job with getting this cast, and I think all the actors did a great job. Now I'm going to give my opinion on the film as a whole, and I think that this is a fantastic sequel that honors the original. It feels like one of the only sequels that has come out that has felt very original and has kept the style and tone, yet really tried to expand on the original movie. Most sequels are basically kind of the same movie, but the film is just somewhat of a progression. But this film feels like an obvious step forward in the Blade Runner universe. The universe is fantastic with a fascinating narrative that does take its time, but we get to experience it with characters that we honestly love. I bet my score is already pretty obvious, but Blade Runner 2049 is awesome. Honestly, what a fantastic film, and I think Denis Villeneuve, I don't know how to say his name that well, but he did a fantastic job and should be very proud of this movie. And I cannot wait to see his next film this year in Dune. And honestly, I think this and the original are both masterpieces in the sci-fi genre. Now, if you ask me, is this better than the original? I don't know. I think both of these films are light years ahead of other movies, but I think that people are very quick to say this is better, and you know, good for them. I love this movie as well, but I honestly still love the original just as much. And I think it really depends. If you're going to ask me right now, I think I might lean more towards Blade Runner 2049. But that said, it really depends on the day which one I enjoy more, since I love both of these films pretty close. They're both basically 10 out of 10s for me. Not a lot of issues on both of them. Anyway, if you like this video, you can leave a like, and if you want to check out my last Blade Runner review, it's in my YouTube channel. I can link it in the description as well, or maybe put a card up or something. But I honestly had such a fun time reviewing both of these movies. So glad they were as good as they were, and I loved reviewing them. Anyway, if you want to hang around and see more of my videos, you can subscribe to hang around. And thank you to everyone who's watching my videos and leaving feedback and just being very kind and supporting me. I'm very grateful for all of you. And comment if you want to see anything new or give me feedback. I know what I want to do in my next one. I just got to make sure I watch that movie just so I can do it. I think it'll be a good video when it comes out. Anyways, I'll see you in my next video, and I'll see you then. Bye.